this moment. Johnny knew he fucked up. I was supposed to be in C a long time ago. Hell with all this other stuff.
C, a statically typed procedural programming language famous for making the world go round. It's the language behind many tools we take for granted, like the Windows, Linux, and Mac operating system kernels, databases like MySQL, interpreters for languages like Python, tools like Vim and Git, and countless others. It was created in 1972 by Dennis Ritchie at Bell Labs, where it would be used to develop the Unix operating system. It would go on to become the mother of all languages, inspiring the syntax of C++, C#, Java, JavaScript, Perl, and PHP, just to name a few. It compiles directly to machine code and requires...
Okay, so I was watching him tear down some rocket the other night, like Apollo rocket or something. It had these wire magnetic memory systems, and they were in like aluminum housing. Apparently they're pretty good. They don't, I mean, like the logic is all quantum mechanics, and I do get a little bit of this. I do understand the 6502 chip. I get Ben Eater, and he has a button, and that button will allow me to take some code system with a laptop that I have today, mind you. Again, cheating. Real bad. I want to take that back down to ones and zero. I just want to take it down to like an infinity set of numbers. This screen, so it does that. You know, give them the basic key 50 or 100 lines of basic code on a screen, or a scroll screen to do that. It should be the basic first of codes that you're going to need to do, because it kind of gives me this limiting software.
Requires minimal runtime support, but is platform dependent, meaning the executable is designed to run on a specific operating system. It's a high-level language designed
Sawmill stuff.
For humans, yet provides low-level control over memory and hardware. There's no garbage collector. Instead, your code needs to manage its own memory. When you create a variable,
what that means,
it's assigned an address in memory. You can store that address in another variable called a point.
I don't know how that programs into it, but he certainly gets into it here in a minute about it. I know I am going to see some stuff like this frequently as far as the code from the ROM chip reader or the EEPROM. I want to program a chip because it has to be self-limiting. It has to understand that inside of there's a ground guide technique, then there's an M2 and MN to XFX, but 104, 106 on the periodic table, you don't really have a 105 unless there's a problem. Even though 106 to 105, come on baby, just give me this one time. No, clang, 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 clang. Would have to do that exactly. Would have to register at a clock ratio, so this code comes in one or two times that allow it to AND the gate to the logic tree in some chip.
Pointer. When the variable is no longer needed, you'll need to free it to avoid memory leaks.
Carl Sagan going to tell you something about, or Feynman going to tell you something about your classical understandings of how ones and zeros work. Yeah, well, they.
Get started, install a C compiler. A popular choice is the GNU C compiler, or GCC. Create a file ending in .c. Include any libraries you plan.
Right there. He smoked every single one. I mean, he is moving fast. He's hauling balls through this thing, but this is how you're about to make that.
Then add a main function to it. This is where your program will start executing. There's no function keyword, and notice how it returns an integer type. A return value of 0 means success, while a return value of 1 means failure. There are only a few basic types in C. Create a variable by starting with a type,
are dead right. Why? Where's the rest of them? I mean,
followed by a name and value. Use printf to print the value to the standard output, or put an ampersand in front of it to reference its address in memory. There's no string type, but instead char, which represents a...
Okay, I'm probably past it, I think, actually. There she is. That's what I'm looking for. Nope, not that one. Just cut to it here. There's a hex or something to her, and somewhere's in here. There she was. No, where was it? There's a hex somewhere's going on here about what the value was I wanted to get at. When you're doing a pin chip, back to the 6502 chip, it doesn't have that. Remember, you're telling it what's in that index because that's how pins work. The pin carries enough electricity from the transistor that the transistor can give me enough space to operate one of these, and then through enough loops and rounding and a couple other chips inside of there about logic gates, There's a few different configurations and standard models in that field that allows me to have enough space to do things before it runs back around, programs it, can forget the information, change that code a little bit. I forget what that hex was. Where was she here? There, that thing's kind of a basic source code, A delta B. From that screen, it pumps out a grid brick like that. When I pump a certain type of energy through it, it's going to prism that system in a certain way. And I certainly like it to the base about understanding that, because back to your classical physics has a hard time fitting in here, because the classical training variants on that have so many different variations on what to use and how to use it against what the basic C line is, or C sharp built that C++ model is this, what do you call it, operating systems as far as how chips work in general, regardless of Unix, defining that. So Imp Current probably had a lot to say on whether it was him or somebody else in that room. Because of the, you can handle the electricity. This little, I believe they had an alien spacecraft. They must have had something that's showing a piece of ancient alien tech or something, pyramids, even if it was people. Because that's why you keep driving this thing down into the ground. And kids are kind of successful. You'll just learn char over a model at a time, so it didn't need the new Python models of what a RAM does. And the computers also got smaller. The science had time to advance inside of that system. So now that's where we have to remember that is, because that's the copper and wire factory that it's all got to be. But where Hello Mom comes in is that function. It chars it when it says that, and it knows it's going to speak down there in the character. But I still need it to be in the print form of the parentheses with quotation marks about hello, for it to understand what it's doing, because then these are really cool models. But I'm not really getting into the code program. Where was she? This thing starts to open down, and I've been working it here. First, you got to build a file and some basic stuff. I finally figured out how to clean it out too. So I'm back down to scratch on that, and I can open it up, and I got a basic hello world. I can just delete that one right back to the core, and I can come out with my terminal to show me the work it does. But I haven't got it quite to the fact that I can do a math problem. I can integrate a trajectory equation 2D space with just line symmetries that are kind of not in art. I don't necessarily, I think it's C sharps would be plus, I'd imagine, is the first physics, a secondary box that could be a 2D wave, this thing right here, just clipped out into showing on the word variable, because this should, by nature of what it does, once you get apparently Mad Pixies mad enough and through a loop, they do magic.
Using the C compiler. This has been the C